I know, these are cool shoes.
My shoes that work out so much
Right,
nicer
so the
than yours.
pillar of
They did. Did you get free dog
whatever.
shoes?
There's the guys that come in too.
Oh, I'm already.
Hi, Christopher. What's wrong?
yourselves to God is not just an added bonus to your marriage relationship. Your commitment needs to be woven into the very fabric of this marriage. I want to encourage you guys to foster that relationship with Him. Make Jesus Christ the center of your home. Joel, during our sessions together, you mentioned that having daily devotions together, you mentioned that you want to make that a priority. Go for it. Make it a family tradition. Get into His Word. Also encourage you to pray together. Start tonight. When God sees two of His own on their knees in prayer, He listens. Because He promises His strong arms of love and support and assistance to all who trust and call upon His name. Joel, Rachel, I've been short. Like you told me I should. I want to encourage you guys. Today is just the start. God has some unbelievable things in store for you. You're two very gifted, you're very talented people. And I'm going to pray, and I will pray from this time forth, that you'll experience this type of love I've been talking about and describing.
me explain a little bit the way God looks at it. A covenant or contract is really just agreement between two individuals, and it can be drawn up however those two individuals desire to make it. But those two people remain two different individuals, whereas a covenant is two unique persons giving up their individual rights to become one unit. And that's today what you're doing. You're making covenant with one another before God, that you're going, in a little while, you're going to light one single candle, signifying that your two lives are becoming one life. And that's what God intended, and that's what's so beautiful about marriage, is that when you become one, two unique individuals bring together two lives that make one life that is far, far better. Joel, I want you to remember, or I want you, that in your marriage covenant, what you want, or your individual rights, no longer count. Nor does Rachel's individual rights count. But you bring your own unique ideas, your desires, and perspectives to one new person. That's your marriage. And it is that new identity, the two of you together as one. It is the rights of those two together that count. So Joel, as the head of this union, decisions that you make are based not on what you want or what you think alone, but on what you together determine is right. Now, under God, there's a third party involved in this covenant, and that's Jesus. And ultimately, he will lead you together, not only through one, but through both of you. All right? So Joel, I charge you under the authority and in submission to Jesus Christ to lead this marriage to the greatness that God desires for both of you.
I just want to share a little bit with you. Ephesians 5 talks about God's plan or his order for a Christian marriage. It says for wives to submit to your husbands, and husbands for you to love your wives. It's interesting that he didn't ask for you to love him or you to submit to her. God had a perfect plan in this. And it's that his order is perfect. When each partner fulfills their part, it works. He made us differently. He gave women the need to feel and be assured of their husband's love. And when a woman feels that confidence in her husband's love, she will willingly submit to her husband. This submission is not one where you're subservient to Joel and he can lord things over you, but it's rather a respect and honor and believing in him. And I found that to be very, very true. Joel will need to know that no matter what anybody else thinks, you believe in him. No matter what the world will say, if he comes home with a dream or a plan or a goal, he needs to know that you're there pulling for him. Nobody else cares, it doesn't matter, only that you care for him. Now when Joel feels that respect and that honor and that support from you, it's going to make his heart just fill up and overflow with love for you. And then you're going to feel loved and cared for and cherished, and you're going to submit and honor and respect him. And when you honor and respect him, he's going to love you, and it's kind of like a circle. It's a never-ending chain circle, because God designed it that way. You're fulfilling one another's needs by just being who he needs them to be. And you see how that perfect plan is from God, and your marriage will be strong and complete and whole when you follow that pattern.
So, do you, Joel, do you take Rachel as you like, as your own flesh, to love her for who she is, not for what she can do for you? Do you promise to comfort her, to be patient with her, and care for her spiritually, emotionally, and physically for the rest of your lives? And do you promise to establish yourself as the spiritual head of the home that you are now establishing? If so, please answer, I do.
Rachel, do you take Joel as your husband to love and submit to in love? Do you promise to uphold and respect him and give of yourself to him spiritually, emotionally, and physically for the rest of your lives? Do you promise to honor him as the head of your home and family and to be his helpmate and support in all that this involves? If so, please answer, I do.
So, Joel, if you would please join hands and repeat after me. I, Joel, take you, Rachel,
I, Joel, take you, Rachel,
to be my wedded wife,
to be my wedded wife,
remember this woman stands at your side and at your feet. You have the responsibility of being the head of this union. And I want you to wear this ring in remembrance that she is your helpmate. It must never become a shackle of dominance, but always a reminder of faith and love.
Ring put on Joel's finger and repeat this. With this ring you become my husband, and I your wife. I believe with all my heart that this is forever. I give you my promise, truth and faithfulness for all my life.
We're just going to pray for a blessing, and you just, as a congregation, agree with us and pray together with us. Father, we come before you this afternoon, and we just pray a blessing over this marriage union. I pray, Father, that you would protect them and keep them, that Joel and Rachel would be protected in their family, that their new family unit now would have the protection of God around it to ward off the enemy, and in Jesus' name, that there would be a strength and stability in this marriage. I pray, Father, for the love to continue to flow and be nurtured in their lives. I just pray, Father, for a blessing in their house and all the lives that they touch and all the lives that they bring into this world. We pray in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. Amen. So now, for as much as you, Joel and Rachel, have made your promises to each other before God and these people, and as a representative of Jesus Christ, before Almighty God, by the power of the Holy Spirit, we pronounce you husband and wife. But God has joined together, let no man tear apart. Let's pray. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to present to you Mr. and Mrs. Joel Carter.
Congratulations. We're out of there now. So
Okay.
you guys have a group that
Oops, sorry.
might have to retire.
Yeah, take it in the car. Allergies?
I'm married. All right. All right. Congratulations. Thank you.
I had this wandering itch. There's a really dumb.
Hey, boy, guys.
Careful, Sandy.
Oh, cool. Dance ball. Oh, throw dance on the bus. Good call. Your hat. Hold it, children. Risky. Good. Now let Mr. Sandy.
Start this reception as soon as we can. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Mr. and Mrs. Joel and Rachel Harder. Okay, that was Joel and Rachel's first and last free kiss of this afternoon. If you know anything about Joel, he's a really funny guy. He likes to make people laugh. So the couple would like to say that if you want them to kiss, you have to come up here in front of this mic, in front of everybody, and say a joke. Emphasize on a clean joke, please. And the better the joke, the more they laugh, the better the kiss they're going to do. Okay? So if any of you are brave enough to come up front and say a joke, you can come up anytime, and you can interrupt me if you will. At this time, I'd like to introduce the head table. To my right here, we have Cindy Partlow. She's from Bellingham, and she's cousin of the bride. She's one of our candlelighters. Can you stand? Next we have Nick Fast. He's from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. He's a friend of the groom. Me and Joel actually spent 2 years with him at BBI, Bible Institute in Hepburn, and he's a good friend of ours. Next we have Paula Quantz, and she's from Athabasca, Alberta. She's also a friend of the bride. She also went to Bethany, and she was in the chorale with Rachel last year. Then in chair where there's nobody sitting, that's John Balzer, hailing from Yarrow, BC. He's the best man and the MC for this afternoon. Next we have our honor couple, Joel and Rachel Harder. And yeah, you know the difference between a frog and a cat? Okay. Well, cat's got 9 lives and a frog just croaks. Yes, sir. Okay, all right. Sitting beside Rachel, we have Carmen Froese. She's from Sardis, and she's been best friend of Rachel for a lot of years. Sitting beside her, we have Al Sandway from Sardis. He's a friend of the groom. He also goes to this church, and he's been a good friend for a lot of years. Beside him, we have Michelle Neufeld from Coaldale, Alberta. She's a friend of the bride, and she also was in the chorale with Bethany, with Rachel last year. Last but definitely not least, we have Kristen Esau. She's from Greendale. She's the sister to the bride. And on behalf of the couple, I'd like to welcome you all here. Special thanks goes to all the out-of-town guests. If you could stand when I say your name too. We have Barney and Sarah Thiessen from Penticton. He's the bride's uncle and aunt. Next we have Ken Harder. He's the brother to the groom, and he lives in Penticton. He's in the back there. We have Dan and Helen, Joel's brother and sister-in-law, and their little son, Christopher, who is the ring bearer. They live in Regina. And also Jan Cash. I don't know if I've seen her. Is Jan Cash here this afternoon? Okay, she was supposed to be here, but she's not. Okay, next we have Ruth and Artie Peters from Terrace, friends of the Esau's. And Gina Weeb from Saskatoon, good friend of the couple. Actually, a really good friend of the best man and MC. We'll be getting married in another month and a half. Okay, this time I'd like to ask Grandpa Esau if he could come forward and bless the meal.
Shall we just bow? Heavenly Father, we come to you this day to thank you for the blessings that we've already received. We thank you also, Lord, for the young couple. We ask you to be with them as they make their way into life, to serve you wherever they go, Lord. We ask you to bless them, guide and help them. We thank you also for the guests that have come, and the friends and relatives that are here. Fellowship and to enjoy along with the couple. We ask you to bless the food. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
I'd just like to give a few meal instructions how we're going to go towards the meal table. We're going to start off with these 2 front tables here. And if I could get this table here to file around back by the juice table and then come through, and then when you're finished you'll end up in the middle and come back to your table. That's what this entire side will do. After this table has gone through, it'll fall to the next and the next. And this table, if you could start and go through here and go around. Okay. So
this is just a little story that even Walter Harder hasn't heard.
That's a joke right there.
That's what the impact. Mark Esau teaches Sunday school down there all the time. And years ago when she thought she was going to do a little test, so she drew some pictures. And she told him, I'm going to tell you a picture, and you tell me what Bible verse it reminds you of. So she pulled out a picture, and here's a nice picture of Mom sitting here with one of the children on her lap, and Dad with another one, and they're reading, and everything's so nice and peaceful. And she said, what that remind you of? And so Rachel says, love one another. And so she picked up another picture, and here it was one in the kitchen, and the girls are doing the dishes, helping Mom, and the boys you could see out in the yard are doing the grass and whatever their jobs were. And John Balzer spoke up, and he said, that's children obey your parents. And the next picture was 4 boys out in the yard fighting, you know. They had a cat between them. The cat's got 4 legs, and those 4 boys were all pulling, really having a scrap. And Joe pipes up and he said, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder.
From somebody here saying that Joel's uncle and aunt from Summerlin, Phil and Charlene Epp are here. So that's another out-of-town guest. And also a phone call this morning, Joel and Rachel. Message on the machine from Uncle Roger and Aunt Lily from California. The whole family wishes Joel and Rachel the very best. Have a long and happy married life. We've been there. Roger, Lily, David, Steve, Greg, and Ashley Macaulay, California. There's lots of more food, so if anybody wants to go for seconds, you can feel free and go. And also, something else to keep in the back of your mind, there's going to be an open mic in about 15-20 minutes, and if you want to say something to the couple, wish them something, or say an old story, you may. Okay?
Joel has read all my joke books, so I've had to think of something else to tell you today. There was another message on the machine. In fact, I intercepted it. It was Joel calling home. He had packed his suitcase for his honeymoon. And guess what he forgot?
Pajamas.
His toothbrush. We also have one of these at home. This is not a new one. This is Joel's. He knows how to fix it. And that is his mouth on how to fix this. So which do you think I should give him?
Joel told me that happened one time on one of his trips back from Saskatoon. He was traveling down. He saw this, as he was traveling down, he was just looking off on the side, and he saw this, noticed this three-legged pig in a farmer's yard, and he thought he'd stop by because it was a real odd thing to see that. I'm going to take a picture of it and show Rachel when he got back. And so we drove in and asked this farmer about the three-legged pig, and asked him how this pig became to be a three-legged pig, because it's kind of odd. And the farmer said, well, that pig is no ordinary pig. He says, that you got to understand, that pig, my son fell into the well behind the barn, and the pig came along and brought a rope and pulled him out. He saved his life. So Joel asked him again, he said, well, if that's certainly is no ordinary pig, but how did he manage to lose his leg? And he said, well, you got to understand, that pig is no ordinary pig. I got caught in a baler here a couple of years ago, and the pig turned the tractor off and rescued, saved my life. And he said, yeah, well, that certainly isn't any ordinary thing, but how did you manage to lose, did it manage to lose its leg? So the farmer said again, he said, well, it really isn't any ordinary thing. My cousin had an accident, car accident, and the pig came and grabbed my leg and got me to come over and find out about it, and he saved his life. He said, yeah, well, how did it manage to lose its leg? Well, a pig like that, you can't eat all at once.
On behalf of the ambassadors, but we can't tell those here. There was this grandpa, could have been Grandpa Esau, I'm not sure, but he was sitting and reading the paper, and the little grandson comes up to him and says, Grandpa, you want to make a noise like a frog? No, I'm busy. Go away. Next little grandchild comes up and says, Grandpa, please make a noise like a frog. No, I'm busy. I'm reading the paper and watching the news. I haven't got time. So the third grandchild comes up and requests, Grandpa, please make a noise like a frog. Please, Grandpa, make a noise like a frog. And he wonders, what in the world is going on here? The third grandchild already asked him to make a noise like a frog. What's going on? He said, well, Grandma said when Grandpa croaks, we'll get $100,000.
I don't really have a joke, but it's actually something that really happened. This friend of mine came over to the house the other night, and he brought another guy with him I hadn't met before. He had this terrible, terrible stutter. And it was kind of embarrassing to listen to the poor guy. Anyway, he's trying to talk. And my friend leans over to him and he says, be quiet, donkey. And I thought, no, that's real nice of you. You know, the guy can't help it, and you're calling him names. And the guy that stuttered, he leaned over to me and he said, well, he always calls me that.
Biblical to have 16 wives? 16 wives, the Bible says 4 better, 4 worse, 4 richer, and 4 poorer.
For me to be in to try and come up with a funny story because I'm the height of curiosity. But I have heard that many years ago, Joe went to the library and he had an assignment to do. And he looked around the library and looked for this book. And he found the book he wanted and tried to check it out in the library and looked at the book and looked at Joel and said, what do you want with this book? And he said, well, I'm doing a report on moths and butterflies. And she said, well, I'll find you another book. The book he had was Advice to Young Mothers.
Hey, Joel, the preacher and the bus driver, they died, went to heaven. And they met St. Peter at the gate. St. Peter said to them, he says, you know, when you get up here, you get rewarded for what you did on earth. So he looked at the bus driver and he said, for you, we prepared this special mansion right up there on the hill. And the bus driver looked up, he was just amazed. He said to St. Peter, well, thank you very much. That is just gorgeous. So he went and took possession of his mansion. Now the preacher, he thought, wow, what am I going to get? So St. Peter looked at the preacher and he pointed to a little shack down by the river that needed repair. And the preacher very indignantly said, wow, after all those years of preaching, that's all I get is the shack by the river? And St. Peter says, well, sir, while you were preaching, the people were sleeping. While he was driving the bus, they were praying.
his past. One thing you need to know about Joel is to always stay by Joel. Like, he has a hidden fear that he doesn't let out very often about being left behind. He was traumatized as a young child about his whole family leaving him all by himself. And when he was in grade 12, he wrote a story about this. And I thought I would take the time to try to quickly read this story that he wrote, talk about how he was devastated by his family when he was left behind. It started off like any other, but little did I know, this would be a Sunday like none I had ever experienced before. I was awakened by my father's morning face peering through a bedroom door, telling me to get out of bed. As I shook the sleep from my tiny 5-year-old eyes, I had no idea I was about to witness my entire family make a mistake simultaneously. I come from a long line of strong church-going people, which meant Sunday was always first on the agenda of day's events. The sun was shining brightly outside as I shoveled down my bowl of Captain Crunch. Next, I trotted off to my room where I put on my good clothes. The year being 1974 meant my good clothes consisted of beige velour shirt, blue corduroy bell-bottoms, and brown high-heeled platform shoes. Even at the age of 5, I was hip. The morning preliminaries being over with, I, my 2 brothers, and my parents piled into our white 1969 Chevy and headed to church. A 20-minute drive to church with 3 kids under the age of 12 was always an enjoyable experience for Mom and Dad. The good thing about this arrangement was I was the youngest. Anything that ever happened was always blamed on my older brothers. The bad thing was that everything always happened to me. Although if it were not exciting, try this one more time. Although if it were not for my brother's fascination with mysteries of fire, nothing too exciting would ever have happened in that car. Two books of matches would not have been lit simultaneously, then dropped on the floor, and deafening firecrackers would not have blown up in the inside of the car. Generally, though, we were pretty good kids. 20 minutes after we all pounced in the Chevy, it was time to get out. Actually, it was only a 10-minute drive to church, but Dad drives cautiously. We arrived in good time, then parked the car. Dad handed me a quarter for the offering bag, and I ran off with the loot. At 5 years of age, the incredible feeling of independence putting a quarter into the offering gives does wonders for the ego. Soon I met with my buddies and we just hung out by the classrooms where we acted cool until the second bell rang. The bell signaled the beginning of another hour of singing, stories, drawing, coloring, and making all sorts of neat stuff. I never really was a big fan of singing. Coloring was all right, and the stories were pretty good, but drawing and making stuff were my favorites. We made everything from King David crowns to bookmarks. At Christmas time, we even got on a musical for the entire congregation and guests. Usually there was an excess of 400 people in attendance on Christmas Eve where the musical was presented. I was always a wise man or a shepherd. Of course, playing one of the roles meant standing in front of 400 people in my bathrobe with a towel tied around my head. This was always one of the high points of the year. After Sunday school came the actual service. This was the time when I would either sleep on my mother's lap or draw pictures on my take-home papers. Our Sunday school kids never do this. I always thought that Sunday school was for children and church was for Mom and Dad. Being 5 years old, I could easily understand Noah sailing around in a big ark, but I could not really grasp the concept of wages of sin being death. The service lasted somewhere around an hour, and then it was time to go and play with my friends again. Playing tag inside the church was always fun until an older person would get angry at us and send us outside. This meant we had to play outside for about 10 minutes, then sneak back inside and dodge the adults. The building was also a perfect place for hide and seek. With all the hallways and classrooms, you could hide and not be found for 3 or 4 days. The church was abounding with things to play with. When the coast was clear, the piano and organ were a great source of entertainment. We could play preacher by standing behind the pulpit and waving our arms in the air. However, the fun only lasted until our parents had finished visiting with the others, and it was time to go home, or until an elder came wandering along. It was one of these days that the horrifying incident took place. I had been roaming around the church with the gang like I did every Sunday, when suddenly it seemed like Mom and Dad should have called already. I went and checked the usual places where I would find Mom and Dad, but they were nowhere to be seen. Even my brothers seemed to have vanished. I did not panic yet, but fear was quickly creeping into my mind. I decided to go back and check the parking lot for the Chevy. My eyes scanned the lot, but the car was gone. My family had left without me, realizing I was not in the car with them. How could they have done this? I knew I was small, but I didn't think I was that small. I could not believe this had actually happened to me. It was now definitely a panic situation, but I did not lose my sense of judgment. Right away, I began planning how I would cover the 5 or 6 mile distance to home. Walking never really occurred to me because I was like most kids who thought it was way too far to walk from the couch to the refrigerator. I would have rather stayed at the church until next Sunday than walk all the way home. Walking being out of the question meant I had to find some other mode of transportation. I double-checked the parking lot and our car was still not there, but this time I noticed my uncle's was. I quickly found my uncle and was explaining my dilemma when I noticed a white 1969 Chevy pull in the parking lot. I was never so glad to see that car in my entire life as I was then. Mom and Dad apologized, but I was just as happy they remembered that they had a 5-year-old son. So stay beside him because he'll be wondering where you are all the time. Next we're going to have Carmen to give a tribute to Rachel.
Well, I admit that I left planning what I was going to say today until the last minute, until last night, which is really nothing unusual for me. But as I lay in my bed last night, I thought about what I could say that would give you an idea of what Rachel is like for those of you who don't know her as well as I do. I had the privilege of growing up just 2 houses down from her in Greendale, so we spent quite a few afternoons together. I don't think we ever played with dolls very much. I think we like to dress up in big girls' clothes and pretend that we were all grown up. And all in all, I think we are pretty quiet, well-behaved girls. Right, Mom? We had no wild slumber parties and no major accidents. We just had some quiet, serious fun. High school was a difficult adjustment for our friendship because Rachel went to Sardis and I was shipped off to MEI. And Rachel, she comes from a very musically talented family, and she herself is very musically gifted. And so she was quite involved with Sardis' music programs and activities, and with new friends for both of us. And when Joel came on to scene in grade 10, we didn't see too much of each other, but going to church and youth activities kept the friendship going. I'd have to say that it's in the last year that I think we have grown really close since we came back from Bible schools. Rachel, I've admired the way that you grew spiritually and in your strong commitment to God. We've had some awesome talks since you've come back, and I cherish them, and I hope we can have more in the future. I also admire the way you've grown in your confidence in yourself, and I think Joel has had a lot to do with that. One memory I have from our childhood that sticks out is of us playing on the old log pile behind our old barn. We used to pretend that we were princesses stranded on this island and we were waiting for our Prince Charming to come and rescue us. Well, Rachel, you found your Prince Charming, and I hope you forever after is all that you want it to be. God bless you both.
John, the best man, was asked to give a tribute to Joel. So I asked myself, and I said, okay. I thought about it the last 2 nights about what exactly I could say about Joel Harder, and I hummed and hawed, and I didn't know where to exactly begin. Me and Joel have been best friends since the last 10 years, since I was in grade 7. We've done a lot of things together. We've we've laughed a lot, we've been through a lot, and we've grown a lot. And I think we've helped each other out through life a lot too. It all started pretty much in grade 7. And we've gone to Sunday school together, we've gone to youth together. We used to stay over at night, we used to have sleepover at each other's places on Friday and Saturday nights, where we played Atari till 2, 3 in the morning, Pac-Man, all the other Atari games. We've gone camping at Cultus together. We've gone to California together with Joel's parents. And that's a time that I cherish with my childhood, is going to California with Mr. and Mrs. Harder and Joel. So many memories I can think of. Going to the water slides and the guy saying, "You guys put your mats back for a half hour." You know, there's just so many things that you wouldn't understand. Yeah, anyway. We've gone to Expo 86 together. Had a lot of good memories about that. We've gone skiing in the winter times, and we both grew our hair long. Now we both have our hair short. We both wear glasses. We strayed away from what Christians value in their values, I guess. We both came full circle around to that. We both went to Bible school at BVI together. We also went on Youth Mission Canada together last summer, where we grew a lot. On the team, our team called us Bill and Ted, because we were both really stupid, I guess. And we were both pretty funny, I guess, and we know each other so well that a lot of times I'll finish what Joel's saying, or he'll finish what I'm saying, or we'll say it at the same time. A lot of good memories there, too. There's not too many things that we haven't done together. And one memory, I guess it's a more serious memory, but when I was at Bethany, and I was going through some really rough times in my personal life, and it was one weekend, and I was on the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning or something, and Joel knew what the phone call was about, what I was going through. And after being on the phone for an hour or two, I came back to my room, and there's a note lying on my bed saying, "If you need somebody to talk to, come by and talk to me, because I'll be there for you." And so I did. And we went outside. It was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning in Saskatchewan, minus 40. We froze our butts off. But he was there for me, and he always has been there for me. And I just want to thank you so much for our friendship. You've been the best friend a guy could ask for. Another example that I found is me and Mrs. Harder about 2 weeks ago. We kind of broke into all of Joel's computer disks. And we looked at everything he's basically written all his life, and we kind of scanned through it all. I won't repeat some of the poems he wrote or anything like that. We'll leave that alone. But one thing that he wrote about himself that I found was really accurate. It says, point 4, it says, "I would like to be remembered as an enjoyable person to be around. When someone needs to talk, I try to make time to listen to them. I try to be a good friend and respect their privacy and confidentiality when they tell me something. Humor is a great stress reliever, and I like to look on the brighter side of things. When someone is depressed, I try to cheer them up while still being conscious of their problems. I would like to be remembered as someone who is cheerful, funny, someone who was there when you needed them, and would do almost anything for just about anybody." I wish you guys all the best of luck as you travel back to Bethany maybe next year, and as you search out God's will for your guys' life. Even that may put you off in another province and we might be apart or whatever. I know our friendship will always last because you've just been always. Thank you. See you back. Okay. Next we're going to have a song by Rachel's Aunt Mary and cousin Cindy and Melissa Marble, sorry.
Come back, that guy.
That's okay, I thought that was a weird name too when I first heard it.
to turn the mic over to anybody that wants to come up here and share a little story about either one of their childhoods or anything you guys want to talk about. So the mic's open for you guys to talk.
I'd like to share a little bit about Joel's earlier years. I'm 8 years older than Joel, and so I got to sort of be maybe a little dad to him. And we did a lot of things together. We got sick together one time on the way to California in the camper. We'll have to ask my dad about that one. One thing I remember is that I got actually wrote some notes here. One thing Joel can do is Joel can juggle, and he can also ride a unicycle, something that I can't do. So I don't know why anyone would want to ride a unicycle, but he does. Remember when Joel was really young, he got sick, and it was sort of our job that we had to feed him these pills. And back then, these were like big plastic-coated pills. He didn't like taking them very much. And so he liked tomatoes a lot. And we devised a scheme where we would hide these big, huge pills in a tomato, and this guy would eat them. And well, we did that after we held him down, and he was writhing and rolling and stuff like that. But finally, he would eat them. The couple other things I wanted to mention is we played a game one time. I think that Joel invented, and the game is called Stick in the Motor. And I was the motor, and what I would do is I would curl up into a ball, and Joel was the stick. And what his job was is he was going to try to lay on top of me to get me to flatten out so that he could be in the motor. But we had our other brother, Ken. He needed a job too. And so Joel had learned a new word that week. And so I was the motor and he was the stick. And so Ken was the guy that was pushing Joel into me to try to get me to flatten out. And so Joel, would you like to tell us what word it was that you called Ken that day?
Well, we had some flooding in the basement, and Dad was complaining about there being water in the sump bowl, so that's what Ken became.
He became sump bowl. The other story I was going to tell, I've been advised not to, but I'm going to throw caution to the wind and tell it anyway. Joel's been known to have a weak stomach when he was younger. And one time, my brother and I, we decided we would have a little fun with him. And we threw a pair of underwear into his face. And he said to us, he says, were they dirty? And we said, well, yes, even though they weren't. And he quickly ran off to the bathroom and puked in the bathroom, even though they were perfectly clean. So, anyway, those are all the dumb stories that I have to tell. And I'm really happy to see that Joel found himself a really good wife. And hope that God blesses your marriage for many years. Thank you.
Over the years, we have spent much time with Joel. And one particular thing that we often talk about, Joe, is the time we went to Big White together. And of course, you know, young people don't want to listen to old people's music. And so then he says, okay, we'll compromise. We'll play one tape of yours, one tape of ours. And then we compared the lyrics to the songs. And Joel and Jonathan pointed out that the music we were listening to, even though it was 4/4 time, but the words were probably just as bad, if not worse, than what they were listening to, even though it was heavy metal. And so that was quite an education we had that weekend. But something that is uppermost in my mind, Joel and Rachel, is that as I was Sunday school superintendent in this church for many years, and I saw both of you grow up, the thing that impressed me most was your willingness to share of yourselves, to give of your time. And with that, of course, comes to mind all the many musicals that we did together, the plays, the dramas, not only Christmas time, but other special functions of the church. And your willingness to participate and to be part of that will never be forgotten in my mind and in my lifetime. And as you venture this new venture together today, Betty and I both want to wish you God's richest blessings, and we hope to continue to be part of your lives in the future.
Well, we got to know Rachel first year at Bethany Bible Institute, and she became the girl waiting to get married. So finally her day came, and we're just going to tell you a few stories to tell what a great wife Rachel will be. First of all, Rachel is fun-loving, but she has her own ideas of what fun is, like not normal. So in Bethany, we like to go swimming quite a bit, and so Rachel would come swimming with us, and no, she didn't like doing the lane thing. She didn't even like doing that. She didn't like diving. No, she would just sit at the edge and watch us for a while, until her and Michelle got this idea of putting on the goggles and watching people underwater. So they'd wear these goggles and they'd dip underwater and they'd people swimming and they'd come and they'd just laughing. They did that for about an hour and a half. It's really funny. Anyway, okay, go on.
Okay, you've already heard a little bit about her musical abilities, and so it was kind of funny because this year I was in chorale as well. I went back to Bethany, and our music teacher at Bethany will always remember Rachel as the girl who came in for her audition and held her hair off her face through the whole thing. She stood there like this, holding her hair as she sang, and she still made it, so she must have been pretty good.
Another thing about Rachel is she's very sharing and giving. And, well, Rachel would get care packages or any sort of package she had in her room, and you know, well, if it was my care package, I wouldn't tell anybody I had it. It would just be really secret, keep it hidden in the drawer. But oh no, she'd have these cookies, and half of them were Joel's. Just automatically, half of them were Joel's, whatever she had, or even more. If she got a whole bag of cookies, well, 3/4 were Joel's. So Joel, she never gypped you out of anything.
And more along that line, I remember one time we were on chorale deputation. I can't remember where we were, somewhere like at least a good hour and a half drive from school, and they were feeding us squares for lunch, and she figured that Joel would like these. I think they were date squares. So she carried one on the bus, held it in her lap all the way home to give to Joel at school.
Okay, one more here. Rachel will keep her family very healthy. Now, Rachel, she likes to go to bed early. She likes keeping her, if she doesn't get to bed on time, she gets sick. So she likes to go to bed early, and this one night, we used to have these study breaks these study times at school, and we'd get together and we'd eat food and we'd gossip and we'd talk about different things. And it wasn't really what you did, it's what you called it. It was studying. Okay, we called it that, so that's what it was. So anyway, we got together about, 9:30, we started studying, and Rachel said, yes, I'm going to stay up late with you and study. This is what I'm going to do tonight. So 10 o'clock rolls around, 10:30 rolls around, and Rachel, she gets up and picks up her books, and Rachel, where are you going? Well, I'm going to bed. Well, I thought you were staying up with us to study late. Well, I did. And so she went to bed. That was at 10:30.
Oh, yeah, okay. Joel, she was also very faithful in keeping you in her mind at all times, and so she had a shrine to you on her wall. And she had her whole wall right at the end of her bed plastered with pictures of Joel. There's a few of herself and him in there too, but they were mostly just of Joel, so you were always in her memory even when you weren't around.
So I think she loves you a lot. So anyway, Rachel, we know you will be a very loving, devoted wife. We are very proud of you, and we love you a lot. Even though your life will be a little bit harder than it will, we know you'll make the best life ever.
Okay, firstly, I was at Bethany with Joel for a couple of years and Rachel for one. so I got a good chance to get to know them well. And one thing I did often was talk to them in the library. And they had kind of we have these study carols, and they had 2 study carols right beside each other in the back corner. Not sure exactly why, but I'd go over there, and I'd visit with them sometimes. And one time I was standing here, and Joel was sitting down, and Rachel was standing up behind him. And he was telling me some big story, explaining it, just going on, and in the detail he likes to use, turn here, turn that. And it's when he had long hair, and Rachel liked to play with his hair or something for a while. And she was playing with his hair, kind of, and you know, he's sitting there, you know, just kind of enjoying it or whatever, and kind of a nice smile on his face. And all of a sudden, this guy from school, Jeff Reimer, he's kind of a joker, I don't know if anyone knows him. He came up behind Rachel and he said, you know, move over. And so he starts playing with Joel. And Joel's sitting there with a big smile on his face. And then I started grinning because I could not control myself. And he turned around and he was like, no, it was really an honor for me to be invited to be part of your wedding. And sometimes when your friends get married, you know one of them, and you know the girl, you don't really know the guy, or you know the guy, you don't really know the girl. But it was really neat that I could be good friends with both of you. And if you're going to be at Bethany next year, I'll be the assistant dean of men at Bethany. So if you need permission for late leave on the weekends, no problem.
To those of you who don't know me, I'm Joel's uncle. In our extended family, that is the harder-fast relationship, there are some names that are more popular than others. One of them is David. There are 4 Davids in our relationship. David Drieger, David Fast, David McCauley, and David Harder. 3 Helens. Helen Driediger, Helen Fast, and Helen Harder. The 2 Catherines, Catherine Fast and Catherine Harder. 2 Elvins, Elvin Neufeld and Elvin Harder. 2 Stephens, Stephen McCauley and Stephen Driediger. 2 Shirleys, Shirley Fast and Shirley Caban. 2 Rogers, Roger Neufeld and Roger McCauley. 2 Kevins, Kevin Neufeld and Kevin McCauley. 2 Erics, Eric Neufeld and Eric Pitchler. And now we have just received the 2nd Rachel. So far, this double and triple and quadruple name situation hasn't given us much of a problem, because all we have to do is tack on the last name, and we could easily distinguish one from the other. But starting today, we can do that with this situation that is we are facing today. Starting today, we have 2 Rachel Harders. And how are we going to distinguish one from the other? That is a dilemma. So, some possibilities, one possibility is to use a number. I've heard of Elizabeth II. Who knows, maybe we could use a number here too, but Rachel means much more to us than a number, so that may not be such a good idea. Or we could attach an adjective behind the name. I've heard of Catherine the Great, but looking at Rachel there, she is really quite petite, and great would not be a suitable adjective. consider the temple in Jerusalem, it had many gates, and people had difficulty distinguishing one gate from the other. And in Acts chapter 3, verse 2, there's an adjective used to describe a gate. And it says there that it is the beautiful gate. And I think that might be a suitable adjective for Rachel. Seeing her sit there beside Joel, I think that would be a suitable adjective, and who knows, it just may stick. I'm quite sure Joel would approve of that. He's nodding his head, so yeah. I certainly hope it will. Anyway, Joel and Rachel, this is a great day for you, and it's very enjoyable for me and my family, and I would like to, on behalf of our family, invite you, Rachel especially, to our extended relationship, and I wish you God's richest blessing as you plan your future together.
Another solution to the huge problem that your family is facing. Just hold on here, let me find this. Joel calls Rachel a variety of different names. So at family gatherings, if you would rather, instead of calling her Rachel, you call her Ray or Rachel-y Poo. Or my little Rachel-y, Rachel-y Kins, my cute little Ray, or little Jelly. She'll answer, I'm sure, to any one of those names. Anyway, I'll just say a little story here too. I thought it would be good just to know exactly how these two met and the things that led up to their going out. It all started out about 4.5 years ago at the youth camp Squia Retreat in October of 1988. They met there, and Joel kind of comes to me and Al and says, you know, Rachel Esau, she's kind of cute, don't you think? And me and Al go, yeah, but she's a little young for you, don't you think, Joel? But he had his eyes on her right away, and from there the flame began to grow through a youth drama that the church did, that they both participated in. Now, need to know a little bit about Joel. He had never had a girlfriend before Rachel, and to say that he was shy was a fierce understatement. He wanted to ask her out while they were doing the drama, but he was too chicken to ask her out because he was afraid of rejection, and then he'd have to go up on Sunday and act with her and go in front of the church, and he thought that would be a real awkward situation if she was going to turn him down. So he left it for a while, but then on December 2nd, they went on their first date, and I think they just went to the movies, and they went back to Rachel's and ended up talking for a few hours, and then Joel went home. 2 days later, they went for a hike to Sumas Mountain with the youth, and this is where they held hands for the very first time. Now, the funny thing is that seeing that Joel was fierce shy, he didn't really know how to hold her hand or make any type of moves at all. So Rachel had to take over this. Seeing that I guess it was on December 4th then, it would have been cold up atop Sumas. So Rachel's constantly complaining, Joel, my hands are cold. Joel, my hands are cold. Joel, my hands are really cold. After 3 or 4 times, Joel finally took the hint and grabbed her hand for the very first time. And then, it even goes on even worse, that he refused to let go of it. They were rock climbing, I don't know if it was sheer face or whatever, but he was holding on to her hand. He just would not let go because he knew that he would never have enough courage to grab it again. And I guess in a way, Joel, you never really did let go of her hand, did you? Anyway, that was how they first started going out. Next, we're going to have Mom and Dad Esau have a few words to us.
a culmination of a long series of events. And initially, I'd like to thank all the people that are here today to make it such an event as it is. And it's a good event, I think. Also, the guests that have traveled great distances, and you heard their names before. Lots of old friends we haven't seen for a few years. Thanks for coming. Also, I'd like to thank the people who helped to do some decorating and little niceties like hair things and flowers and all the things that make it special. And especially my wife who sewed all the dresses that you see, except the bridesmaid or the bride's dress, but all the bridesmaids and the candlelighters' dresses, they were all done. I especially would like to thank Alvin and Esther for raising a fine son. And the proof is in the pudding here. Over the last 5 years, I have watched this couple go from "we're just friends, Dad" to "we're going out," to the point where Joel was sitting at the foot of my bed at 11 o'clock one night asking for my daughter's hand. That was kind of exciting. Both Mark and I have noticed the respect and courtesy Joel has shown to Rachel from the very beginning, and I have no doubt that this will continue in their marriage relationship. Joel, I know Rachel loves you very much and will stand by you and defend you all she can. But I know you know with Rachel there's very little middle ground. It's right or it's wrong. It's black or white. She likes it or she doesn't. She hates mushrooms. There's a little, she likes seafood, Joel, just when you go into a restaurant. When we were in Terrace, I used to go fishing quite a bit. And we'd go to the ocean, and I'd sometimes bring back some succulent Dungeness crabs. And if she saw me get my waders together and my fishing gear, she was just quite small then yet, and she says, "Dad, when are we going to have some of that crap again?" She made the letter change after a little while when she found it was crab. But even though that she's very particular, she doesn't pester you until she gets her own way. Sometimes she says nothing, but I think you know what she's thinking. Just one look from those sharp eyes and you'll soon get the message. Rachel has blessed us with her musical ability in piano, flute, and various other instruments that Mr. War of the band was able to convince her to bring home. And she did quite well at them too, I think, for the short time that she played some of them. So Joel, she's not only beautiful, she's talented as well. Joel, as you and Rachel set up your household, you'll have to remember that it's your household. You'll get lots of advice from friends and family, and I know you'll weigh it all carefully. Set your priorities the way you would like to see them set, spiritually, physically, and in desires of the heart. Mother and I love you both dearly and accept you, Joel, into our family, wholeheartedly. We wish you every success as you grasp the opportunities before you.
Thank you, Mr. Seesaw. This time I'd also like to ask Mom and Dad Carter to come up and give their words.
Well, Alvin, we got 2 girls. Today's a special day. We've got a girl joining our family. And we'd like to wish you God's blessing.
I was told last Monday evening to prepare a speech for today. I usually need about a whole month to think about it, to prepare it. So mine will be a short speech, something like Stan's, I guess. So I know, I guess I'm supposed to probably welcome Rachel into the family. I don't know, I didn't even know why I'm on the program. I guess if that's a good enough reason, I guess that's what I'll have to do. I'll have to welcome you into our family. But just let me say a couple of things first. You already know your way around our house, because you've been dating Joel for 4 years now. So you know your way in and out of the house as if it's your own house. As a matter of fact, you even baked or prepared a meal for us, for Joel and myself. Esther happened to be in Regina that week, so Joel and I were here to fend for ourselves. So if you can prepare a meal, you must know your way around our house without Esther being around. And that brings me to the next topic. I know, Rachel, that you're a very good cook. Because when I came home from work that one day, I could just smell the aroma coming out of the kitchen through the front door. So, wow, this has got to be good. And it was very well prepared, Rachel. Very tasty. I guess you must have been watching Esther for a while, I don't know. But it was very good. So that would qualify you to become a member of the Harder family. So at this time, I would like to welcome you into the Harder family.
Well, it's story time with Johnny now. Proposal weekend. How he proposed to Rachel. Does anyone guess where he proposed to her? Sumas Mountain. You got her. Mystery, so answers. That's no good. That's the first place, like I said before, that they held hands. And they actually hadn't been to the top of Sumas Mountain since that weekend, 4.5 years ago. Well, I guess it would be about 4 years ago. So it was kind of a significant place where they first started holding hands. Joel told Rachel that they were going to go on a mystery trip. So Rachel kind of went along with it, thinking in the back of her mind that it could possibly be the proposal weekend. At least it better be the proposal weekend. They drove up Sumas Mountain and they went for a little hike till they found a little clearing. Joel brought along a backpack, a blanket, the ring, 2 wine glasses, and a bottle of orange and mango koala springs and his camera. Once they got there, they spread out the blanket and they sat and talked a while on the blanket, and Joel said they may have even kissed a few times. Then while she was sitting on the blanket, Joel got down on one knee, looked into her big blue eyes and asked, "Will you marry me?" Rachel's response was, "I'm not sure, I need more time. I don't want to rush into anything." Actually, what really happened was her face just gleamed and she says, "Yes, Joel, I do." You see, Rachel had been waiting quite a long time for Joel to propose to her. And I guess if you know the Harder family, usually go at an older age, at late 20s, like I know Dan was a little older. I think Doug and Mike were both a little older too. And Joel didn't want to rush into anything, I guess, and he was just taking his time. So after she said yes, Joel got out the koala springs to celebrate, and then they got the self-timer up and took some self-timer pictures. What a wonderful invention, the self-timer picture. Anyway, next on the list we have a song. Let me just find myself here. Song by Rachel's Aunt Phyllis and cousins Connie and Hilda.
And Rachel, we welcome you into the F family.
and God bless you in your life together. I could never promise you just my strength alone, that all my life I'd care for you, love you as my own. Never known the future